council meeting for June 23rd, 2025 to session. Roll call, please.
Briggs.
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Page.
Yes.
Weber.
I believe first order is presentation, Main Street Mexico update. Mr. Slagle?
Yes, Your Honor, we received a request from the Main Street organization to provide an update on their activities. Eric, were you the one? Oh, it's going to be Alex Fink tonight. Okay.
So I see, I was just about to ask, how long do I have in it? The big sign says 3 minutes. All right, very good. So my name's Alex Fink. I'm on behalf of Main Street Mexico. So for those who don't know, this is an effort that is nationwide in its scope, but we are kind of a chapter, if you will, of that effort that is directed towards revitalization of downtowns in the United States. And so one of the very first things that we as an organization thought was a good way to revitalize the downtown is we looked at the other areas of downtowns around our communities around us, like Fulton, Columbia, etc. And one of the things we liked in those downtowns were trees. Many of you in this room will probably remember some issues with trees we've had in the past in our community, leading to the stark absence of trees in our downtown now. So when looking at putting trees downtown, which is our main proposal today, and we're here really as Main Street to ask for permission from the Mexico City Council and the support from Mexico City Council to proceed with planting trees in downtown Mexico and existing planter wells, essentially at no cost to the city and with very minimal upkeep from your all's standpoint. So the reason why is it revitalizes the downtown, improves walkability, draws people downtown, makes people want to stay. People in cars don't buy things, people walking do, and we want to get people out of cars and walking and around businesses. But we do recognize challenges. So one of those is the grackles, those birds that have a mob-like mentality and get in trees. Well, they are really attracted to Bradford pears, which we had and we cut down, and we are not proposing those types of trees. So in our efforts, we identified trees that would not mess up the sidewalks and streets, that would not attract grackles, that would be fast-growing, and the reason that's important I'll get to in a second. I realize I only have 3 minutes, and then
You got more. You got more.
Steve,
got
do
more
not
than
tell
3.
me that. I will talk. But okay, so I'll slow down just a little bit. But fast growing as well. And then also another aspect that we wanted to minimize was fruit dropping or foul smelling fruit or any of that stuff. And we also wanted to take into consideration some business owner considerations as well. So as the council flips through the packet that I handed out, for those of you here today, I won't list the trees that we have listed, but you'll note that underneath them, many of them have beautiful fall colors. One of them, ginkgo trees, they drop all of their leaves at once on one day in the fall. And so there are other towns that actually have events where they know, after the first frost, there's going to be all the leaves fall, and they actually organize a farmer's market around the leaves falling, and then the business owners have just one day downtown where they have to sweep their stoop, and the city has one day where they bring the street sweeper around, and then the leaves are gone. So very kind of thoughtful approach to tree planting, and that's really the approach that we had, was be thoughtful, do the homework now, as you'll see in this 4 or 5 page handout, so that we don't have problems later, like the grackles, any sidewalk issues, that sort of thing. So, how many trees? So, I have to be up front. I have, and this is not good for those who know I'm a doctor, I have a poor attention span sometimes, and I was counting these planter wells with my son in tow. So I think there's 92 plus or minus a few, okay? And these are existing planter wells that are bricked up in many cases, but none of them are cemented up from the ones that I counted, and many of them are actually open. And so what we would propose is that Main Street organizes a volunteer effort to take the bricks out and to, put organic matter in them under the supervision of John Graham from Callaway Fields, and make sure that we are doing this in a way that makes the planter wells, healthy and a good environment for the trees when we plant them, and again, at no expense to the city. And so planting is typically in the fall or spring. We could split this up if it was, bothersome to downtown businesses as far as how many are planted at a time. I really don't think it will be burdensome because, again, this is entirely volunteer-driven and donation-driven. The costs, are there. We're aware of them, but again, that's as of no cost to business owners or to the city or anything like that. The only thing that the city would be asked to do, I guess, and we did talk to the Parks Department just to kind of do our due diligence, not to go around you all, but just to talk to them and make sure we were doing our homework. And contingent upon the approval of the city council, the Parks Department reported that it would be feasible to use their 500-gallon mobile water tank to fill up 20-gallon water bags on each of the trees. These water the trees over the course of days in a slow kind of trickle that's, good. If many of you in the room, I'm sure, have planted trees in your yard and put the gator bags or whatever around the trees. It's very typical to do that. They have a 500-gallon tank. You could fill that tank up 4 times, do all 92 trees over the course of the week. You could stagger it to make sure you're not using too much of the employees' time, which would be pretty minimal taxing on their time because, again, these are bags, so you're just putting a hose in it. You could go do something else if they had to go take care of something at the pocket park or somewhere else, or do admin work in their truck or something like that while they're waiting. So pretty low maintenance from the city standpoint, and that really is the only kind of ask that we are having other than your permission from the city. The rest of it is completely supplied by Main Street. We are writing grants as we've already written and submitted one, and we have others that we've identified. And yeah, I do want to make sure that we label and address potential challenges of this project, because I don't want to gloss over that. We want to be mindful of this. And so the things that we've identified are from business owners are the concern for blocking of signs. We recognize that. There will be a temporary time as these trees grow, which, by the way, they grow 2 to 3 feet a year in ideal conditions, that where they are blocked, but then it will grow beyond that, if you've been downtown Columbia, et cetera. And I would venture to say that the pro of having the trees being more walkable downtown far outweighs any blockage of the signs in the temporary time that they are blocked. And there's also the considerations that many businesses get their marketing done less from signage on the storefront and more from SEO, social media, websites, etc. Another concern is grackles. I think I've covered that, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have about that. But these trees, I cannot guarantee that no birds will land in these trees. However, the trees are specifically chosen because they do not have branch patterns that encourage mob-like grackle behavior. So I think it's a pretty low concern. Other challenges that I wrote down. Yeah, the leaves I kind of addressed with the ginkgo trees around the square, potentially twigs and seeds. You can select varieties, so like ginkgo trees. Some of you all may know that ginkgo trees drop pretty foul-smelling fruit, but you can select varieties that don't do that. And so we would do that, again, under the direction of John and all of the expertise at Callaway Fields. And just as an aside as well, sorry, the very last thing I'll say is that my sister's a landscape architect in St. Louis. She does many projects with the city of St. Louis, and I consulted her as well, off to the side, and made sure that we had a list of trees that were responsible, that we are not doing anything that, like St. Louis, Nashville, Columbia, Jeff City, these are trees that any of these cities would plant. So with that all said, I think I've well gone beyond my 3 minutes. Thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Sounds like a nice project to me.
Appreciate it.
Alex, I do have a couple questions on that.
So I'm going to sit down.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't see ash trees on there that we can cut down in about 10 years.
Yeah, well, I know that was just a statement, that's not your question,
Right.
but to that point, one of the things that John has said, and that's a very good point, is that you should have biodiversity in your tree planting.
Yeah.
So if there ever is, the equivalent of the ash elm borer thing, I'm not an arborist, kills some of the trees, you have varieties of other trees.
Okay.
And that's why we listed like 8.
And who would take care of the pruning and long-term care on those?
I think that's a good question. I think that it could be the Parks Department, but we would be open from a Main Street perspective to do that on a volunteer basis as well. I feel like it's not a feeling, it's a knowing that's pretty minimal, and I brought John today because he's the expert, but I believe that would be fairly minimal over the first several years as they grow.
Yeah, I think, I'll just talk back here. I think as a tree is younger, you're going to have very minimal pruning on those. You'll run into maybe bigger issues later down the road where you may have to have an arborist come in or the city arborist deal with a few bigger branches or something like that. But overall, for the first 10, 15 years, it's going to be very minimal.
Thank you.
That's a much better answer.
Tree boxes that have been concreted in, you talked about taking bricks out, are you gonna take the concrete out?
No, I would love to, so, Chris, just as an aside, I'm pro as many trees as we can get downtown, but if, no. And seriously, taking the concrete out, that's going to be very expensive. Main Street doesn't have that kind of money. We came into this really with the understanding that we want to minimize the expense to the city as much as possible so that we have the best working relationship possible. So we were going to start with, I think 92 is plenty, so we'll start with that.
I think it's a great project, and it will help a lot in the way the downtown looks. The first trees we put in, we had trouble with cars hitting them as they come into park. So I don't know how you avoid that. And the opposite of that is when they parallel park, they open doors and hit them. I don't know whether, John, there's something we're going to put around the bottom of these trees for people that, they hit them hard, beat them up hard.
Yeah, so without putting like a stop in it, I mean, the trees will have a protective guard on each tree, which will help minimize that to some extent, but if they plow into that tree, if their foot hits the accelerator instead of the brake, that's going to be another issue.
And I would venture to say that's a pro, actually, because if you look at Stacy's place, I think we should have more things preventing, my wife works out of a building downtown. I would like a tree to block her front,
Well, I thought you were going to say you hoped a car would not.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think that's actually a pro.
Where I grew up, they have Main Street, and one thing they do, they don't have trees, they have the hanging plants that they do. And the one thing that they do is they have a group like the Handy Shop there, and they get them involved in making the hanging baskets every year. And then, of course, other people hang them, but they're involved in that. And I didn't know if you could get the Handy Shop involved in, if you do this watering, things like that, if that's something that they would be, might be something to collaborate with them to do something like that. And just another option there with the city using the water tank, and then, people, just doing that as a collaborative thing for them to do as well, so.
I think that's an excellent idea. A lot of our goals in Main Street is to create as many community partnerships and collaboration as much as possible to lift the goal of revitalization up.
We appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Approval of minutes.
Move we approve the minutes of June 9th.
Second.
Briggs,
Yes. Go on.
you were on.
Abstain.
Oh, sorry, you're right, sorry, abstain. I'm thinking about trees.
Ray,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Page,
Yes. Ordinances, bill number 202539, an ordinance amending chapter 2, administrative article 4, administrative departments, offices, division 11, community development, Code of the City of Mexico. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor. As council is aware that given the directive to improve the state of code enforcement in our community and improve the appearance and looks of our community, and it was felt one of the best ways to begin this process was looking at our codes and reviewing how best to deal with that. And Nathan Lombardo, our Deputy City Manager, Community Development Director, has proposed some ordinances that we discussed at the last meeting, and we have those now available for you to review and consider. And so I will turn it over to Nathan to provide the background.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, can I twist this just a little bit? I'm sure all these people are here to see me, so it's okay. So there are, for the clarity of the audience, there's 4 ordinances related that we're talking about tonight. You are all here for Article 2 of Ordinance 4, for the record, just so you know. So the first one we're discussing is making some very small changes to Chapter 2 of our code, adding a definition of the code official, since that title is used in property maintenance code. So we just want to make sure that that title has a definition that is in our code that is applicable everywhere, and then clarifying the structure of the community development department.
Is that it?
For the first one, yes.
Move for the reading of bill number 2025-39.
Second.
Briggs,
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Bill number 2025-39, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Administrative Article 4, Administrative Department of Offices, Division 11, Community Development of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri. I move for the second reading of Bill 2025-39.
Second.
Briggs.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Bill number 2025-39, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Administrative Article 4, Administrative Department and Offices, Division 11, Community Development of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri. I move for passage of Bill 2025-39.
Second.
Briggs.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes. Bill number 2025-40, ordinance amending Chapter 6, Buildings and Construction. Mr. Slagle?
Sure.
Okay.
Part of the goal of this whole process is to add a lot of clarity to our code and do as best we can to consolidate it, put things in the right place, and reduce length if possible. These are changes to Chapter 6. One change fixes a pretty significant oversight. In my view, it's an oversight. Whereas currently, the existing building code is only applicable in C3 districts, so we're changing it to make it applicable citywide. This will allow all of the older buildings to have a lot more flexibility in how they do renovations, additions. They want it to come up to the same building codes. There'll be a different set of building codes that we already adopt anyways to make developing and fixing a little bit easier, just allow them some more options. So that's a significant fix for the whole city. We're also intending to create a new chapter dedicated only to code enforcement. So we're going to remove adoption of the property maintenance code from Chapter 6 and move to the new chapter for code enforcement. So then Chapter 6 will be only devoted to building activities, new construction. So there'll be no confusion where certain regulations are, and everyone can go look in one place or another when they're going through the code.
Council's pleasure.
Okay, I move for first reading of Bill number 2025-40.
Second.
Briggs.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Bill number 2025-40, an ordinance amending Chapter 6, Buildings and Construction of the Code of the City of Mexico. I move for first reading, or second reading, excuse me.
Second.
Second.
We got that.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Briggs.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes. So you gotta read it again.
I said first reading, I think. I think I said second reading on that amendment, or on that vote, motion.
Yep, you did.
Okay.
Now read it.
Okay, now, I will read it.
Yeah, there you
Bill
go.
number 2025-40, an ordinance amending Chapter 6, Buildings and Construction of the Code of the City of Mexico. I move for, where are we?
Passage.
Passage.
Second.
Briggs.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes. Bill number 2025-41, ordinance amending Chapter 26, offenses and nuances.
Yes, so right now, Chapter 26 is what is used when we do code enforcement citations. However, that is not where the property maintenance code is in our code. So we basically had two sets of regulations for code enforcement. Since the intent is to move to only using the property maintenance code, which is what the majority of places in the country use, the parts of Chapter 26 that we use the most are either being written into the Mexico Property Maintenance Code or just being removed because they may be in there twice. The rest of Chapter 26 is what the police use when they issue citations, and we are keeping all of those relevant ordinances and sections in there. So now, much like we did for Chapter 6, Chapter 26 will be only the area for police citations, and it'll be very clear, and all of the code enforcement items will move to a new chapter, and there'll be no going back and forth between the two chapters.
I move for reading of bill number 2025-41.
Second.
Briggs.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes, bill number 2025-41, an ordinance amending Chapter 26, offenses and nuances of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri. I move for the second reading of bill number 2025-41.
Second.
Briggs,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Eight,
Yes. Bill number 2025-41, an ordinance amending Chapter 26, offenses and nuances of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri. I move for passage of bill number 2025-41.
Second.
Briggs,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Eight,
Yes. Bill number 2025-42, an ordinance creating Chapter 43, property maintenance, residential rental property regulations, vacant building registration.
Ahead of time?
If you're going to talk about it.
So this is why we're all here tonight, this section, this chapter here. So, and I'll walk through each section with a little bit of detail so they understand. And so for the people who have not read it and are not code enforcement and policy nerds like I am, know what's being intended here at least. So this would be the creation of Chapter 43, which would be just for code enforcement. So any code violations, things would be all in one place. So we'll be bouncing back and forth. There really would be no question. So Article 1 is just adopting the International Property Maintenance Code, or re-adopting it. We had that in place already. What we did until about 2 seconds ago, where we just took it out of Chapter 6, so now it's in limbo to get put back into Chapter 43. Whenever a city adopts the property maintenance code, and if you ever go through it, it is not necessarily thrilling, but you'll see spots where you need to fill in dates and times in the city of Mexico or city of wherever, and you can also make whatever changes you like. So that's what we're doing in Article 1, adopting the property maintenance code, making all those little Mexico-specific changes, which are not really any different than what we already have in place, but just have not been enforcing properly. The biggest change to the property maintenance code, really two. One is just clarification of our process. So all citations now, whether it's grass is too high, or a derelict building, or a rusted car in your yard, will all have the same process. So you'll be cited, work with the staff. If it progressed to court, you would talk to the judge. Just a very standard process, as opposed to, again, having different processes in different places throughout the code for different violations. It's just not the right way to do it. And the second thing is banning the boarding up of buildings. So instead of boarding up an empty building, you would have to maintain windows and doors in it. Of course, the building could still be empty and unoccupied, but you would have to have a certain level of quality and couldn't just leave a building looking neglected. So that's the change in Article 1. The next question, per article, or just with the whole thing?
If you can, yeah.
Just keep going? Did you guys have anything? Just keep going.
You might explain to the audience about questions, they can ask questions.
So, places for public comment in our meetings are at the end. So council can always also, they're asking me to explain the ordinance to them. It's in front of them to vote on tonight. They can ask me questions about it, they can make changes to it, or they can pass it or reject it. So it's not that council is not interested in opinions and thoughts. There's just a certain process and methodology to how things are done. But I know that they have heard all of those and are aware of why everyone's here. So you're not allowed to ask questions now because I don't want to take your questions, but that's the means are structured in a certain way.
Is it a vote before we can ask questions?
Yeah.
Because it's already passed. So the rules don't matter? Yeah. You already passed, so it won't matter anyway.
Well, every place downtown, every one of those buildings with the windows boarded up, or you have to put windows in every building downtown now?
So that specific part would not be retroactive, but that's not how that works.
It's boarded up windows.
We need to redirect.
Everybody's boarded them up for years.
Okay, you'll have an opportunity to speak. We're going to get through this ordinance here, and then you'll have an opportunity at the end to give your comments and see how we direct this from here.
Hold on before we comment, right?
But you need to we're not going to engage in conversation. You need to let it play out, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
Can you do impeachment?
Exactly. Article 2 would be the introduction of two different regulations for residential rental properties. One would be for the city to establish a landlord permitting process. That would be an annual one-time fee and paperwork for a landlord for all of your properties. Whether you had one property or 1,000 properties, it would just be once a year. We would ask you to update your information, make sure we had good local contact, that kind of thing, and that's all that is. The second is for occupancy permit for residential rental properties. That would only happen when there was a vacancy. So that's not an annual inspection. It's only an inspection when the property is getting a new tenant. And that would be to bring it up to basic minimum life safety standards. The suggestion is to use similar standards that the state of Missouri uses and the federal government uses for HUD buildings, so the state of Missouri uses those for other facilities and programs that they have. I did put a copy of those on the dais for you. Those type of questions, things we would check are, do the lights work? Does the plumbing work? Is there mold on the walls? But right now we have no visibility and really no idea what's happening with any rental property. And so this would just be one step to make sure there's a minimum baseline of life safety in all the rental properties the city had some bit of oversight over. But again, that would only happen at the change of occupancy. So we wouldn't just be going out now and just looking at everybody's house. Well, commercial already has to get those done. The third article in here came to us from, it's part of the Main Street program, and it's this is a bit that is given to cities the ability to do by the state of Missouri as a vacant property registration. So if you had a vacant structure in the city, you would have to register it with the city. Lots of municipalities do that. It's a way for us to stay on top of property owners and have some sort of visibility and involvement in properties that are vacant, left alone. The intent is to incentivize or encourage, shall we say, those properties to not be vacant, to be fixed up. They're too far gone to be removed. Of course, that could also be handled in code enforcement, but the goal is to not have empty property in commercial areas, not have empty property, especially on our residential streets. Now, there's a lot of qualifications in here. If you're in between tenants, you wouldn't go on the registry. If you're fixing it up or if it's being built, you wouldn't go on the registry. But if it was a situation where it was just an empty building and it was just being neglected, that's something the city would certainly want to keep tabs on. And those are all parts of the fourth ordinance.
Are you finished?
I am.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we remove Article 2 and 3 from Bill number 2025-42 for further discussion.
Second.
Briggs?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Bill number 2025-42, an ordinance creating Chapter 43 Property Maintenance. Did I keep reading all that?
Yeah, and that
Okay.
has amended.
Residential rental property regulations and vacant building registry of the Code of the City of Mexico as amended. Need a second.
Second.
Briggs?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Bill number 2025-42, an ordinance creating the Chapter 43 Property Maintenance, Residential Rental Property Regulations, and Vacant Building Registry of the Code of the City of Mexico as amended. I move for this passage.
Second.
Briggs? So let me sort of clarify this. So he has been discussing 42, right? Mm-hmm. And the motion's been made to end the discussion. So now we're voting whether to approve it or not approve it?
Approve it with the exception of removing Article 2 and Article 3. Article 2 is the residential rental regulations, and Article 3 is the vacant building registration.
Okay. All right.
And
For further discussion.
And for further discussion later time.
Okay, yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes. Resolutions, reading by title only and passage. Bill number 2025-43, resolution authorizing city manager to execute an agreement with various organizations for the Mexico tourism tax. Mr. Slager.
Yes, Your Honor. The Tourism Commission has met, and they have recommendations regarding funding for future events in the community. And to cover the recommendation, Vicki Dinky, Finance Director.
Good evening. The Tourism Commission met on June 17th to consider a funding request from Paul and Teresa Ridgway for their Summit Events Bee Gees Gold Concert to be held on September 13th. The attached resolution authorizes the city manager to execute an agreement with Paul and Teresa to receive that funding for their advertising campaign. The Tourism Commission reviewed this application and recommends they fund this at the amount of $1,500. Staff recommends that council concur with the Tourism Commission's recommendation and proceed with reading by title only and passage of the attached resolution. Any questions? Okay.
I move for reading of Bill number 2025-43.
Second.
Briggs?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes. Bill number 2025-44, resolution, City of Mexico.
I got to read it.
Oh, sorry, my fault. I gotta-
You're good.
2543, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with various organizations for recommended funding from the Mexico tourism tax. That's Bill number 2025-43.
Second.
Move for passage.
Move for passage.
Move for passage.
Briggs?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes. Bill number 2025-44, resolution City of Mexico declaring an imminent threat to public safety and authorizing emergency actions. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor. As council is aware that we have been discussing the demolition of the building that was known as Hardin Gym at the Presser Arts Center. The city did conduct a review of the building on July 22nd of 2024. The review did find that the structure was an environmental hazard and that did meet the criteria to be classified as a dangerous building. As a requirement to secure community development block grant funds, which we have already authorized to seek, an imminent threat must be declared of the building in order to be eligible to receive those funds. So staff would recommend council proceed with reading by title only and passage of the attached resolution declaring the imminent threat of the public safety and authorize emergency action to do the demolition of Hardin Gym. And that's if we get the funds.
I move for reading Bill number 2025-44.
Second.
Briggs?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Bill number 2025-44, resolution of the City of Mexico, Missouri declaring an imminent threat to public safety and authorizing emergency action limited to the demolition of the Hardin Gym located at 920 South Jefferson Street. I move for passage of 2025-44.
Second.
Briggs?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes. Bill number 2025-45, resolution authorizing city manager to accept temporary construction easement for Muldrow Phase 2 sidewalk improvement. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor. Muldrow Street, we do have a project moving forward with sidewalk improvements. We will also have a Phase 3 on the improvements. This is a particular area that seems to have confusion at times regarding state authority versus city authority. The surface area and everything is all state authority. However, the easement regarding the sidewalks is city authority. And we have applied for and received grants to fix those. And upon facilitating that, we did identify that there needed to be some temporary construction easements to get that work done. So to cover the details of those, Drew Williford, our city engineer, public works director.
Good evening, council. As Bruce mentioned, this project relates to Phase 2 of the Muldrow work that's ongoing. You'll see the contractor out there hopefully in the next week or so working back on the project, but we did get delayed. We found we needed an additional 7 easements to continue on with the project. We have acquired all 7 easements at this time. They are all temporary construction easements, no cost to the city. All have been donated and all in accordance with the Uniform Relocation Act. So at this point, we are requesting permission to proceed and accept these easements, send them to MoDOT, and then get the contractor back on site. This was all precipitated due to a lot of the Americans with Disabilities Act work. When that happens, we end up having to lower the sidewalk more, which causes some of the repairs to driveways to go back into private property more, and that occurred on 7 of these locations that we need to get an easement to access private property on. All property owners have been in support of the project, no problems at this point. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I'll move for a reading of bill number 2025-45.
Second.
Briggs.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Eight.
Yes.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to accept temporary construction easements for Muldrow Phase 2 Sidewalk Improvement Project, TAP-4400. I move for a passage.
Second.
Briggs.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Eight.
Yes. Pay the claims.
Move to pay the claims.
Second.
Briggs.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Eight.
Yes. Council comments. Councilman Ray.
It was great to see all the people turn out for United Credit Union's big opening. We're lucky to have them in town, and great employer, and they have a nice building they're going. So congratulations to them on their new digs.
Ms. Briggs.
Mrs. Briggs. Well, there's so much construction going on around town, and sometimes Kentucky Road is closed, and sometimes it's not, and today it was closed, but I know when we get it all done, it's gonna be something we're all gonna be proud of. And I want to thank all of you for coming. We don't often see so many people in the room. I know you had something you were concerned about, but anyway, appreciate you coming and speaking out and doing your job as the way you should be doing it.
Mr. Miller.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming, and it looks like we need to review our project a little bit. Doesn't mean it's not right, but we need to talk to you guys about it. Glad you're here. We got a big Jeep event coming up here in another week downtown. It's supposed to be a big event. Hope it benefits town. I'm glad that Main Street Mexico is working hard on their project. Wish I had a spot in front of my building, but it got concreted in. That was a narrow-minded question when I asked that.
Well, he didn't say you couldn't pay to have it done.
I know, he didn't.
I mean, you can do that. Mr. Slagle.
I have nothing this time.
Nothing. I guess Miss Missouri was a success. Probably good to see everybody in town, and I think had pretty good weather. So good for that. And that's pretty much all I have. Now we'll go to public comments. I probably have quite a few people that want to talk. Since I'll kind of explain this to you. You'll come to the podium and you'll give your name and the address that you live at. This is not a give and take. You will give your comments on what you think about Article 2 and 3.
Or something else.
Or something else, whatever it might be, which I'm sure is probably going to be most of that. If you're looking for us to answer, it's not going to happen. This is for you to give comments, and then we will digest it and we'll move on from there. You have 3 minutes. I do not know how many are going to talk, so you can talk to your heart's content for 3 minutes, and then the next person can get up and give their name and their address, and then they can talk for 3 minutes as well. If you did not understand, we took out 2 and 3 out of that, which most of you were concerned about, because as Councilman Miller said, we want to hear what you have to say. But I think that we also want to do what's best for Mexico from a lot of standpoints, from all vantage points as well. So when you come up there, just do what I said. We'll listen, and then we'll take that and we'll digest it, and we'll start discussing from there on what changes we might want to make if we do. So the podium's yours.
I'll crack you guys.
Hello, Council. Adair Hathaway, 21234 Monroe Road. I live on Paris, Missouri. May not be the most popular amongst the crowd myself.
You allow, if we allow.
Well, yes.
Too loud?
Do you have rental property in Mexico?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. I have both existing rental properties and have built new in this town for approximately 15 years. I believe Bruce should be familiar with some of the houses that we've built here in town. This may not be that popular amongst my fellow landlords. I actually don't really have a problem with the occupancy inspection program. Actually deal with it in other towns that I've invested in as well. My biggest concern as what I feel like a landlord that tries to do it right, we have quarterly interior inspections with our existing tenants. We also do monthly drive-by inspections for the nuisance stuff, the yard and stuff. If I sound like I'm nervous, I'm a little bit cold and I'm nervous. I'm not used to talking in front of a whole bunch of people. I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. As far as the occupancy inspections, I do not believe that this situation needs to be relegated only to landlords. We have problems throughout the community that aren't just narrowly focused on landlord issues. I'm going to use a case in point of Emmons Street. I have remodeled about a half a dozen of them in a row on one side of the block and built new on the other side of the block after we demoed the houses. There are two nuisance properties, subsequent side-by-side properties, 1012, and then the next property, which would be to the east, 1012 Emmons. They are both in a poor state of repair. So while you all are considering this metric, I would take a look at transfer of ownership as well as existing rentals. And again, I know I'm probably going to get my ass kicked afterwards here from my fellow landlords on that one. But there's a lot of problems in how this is handled internally. You all as a city do not own your water, so I'd be interested in what your control mechanism to even implement this. Missouri American Water controls your all's backside on who and what the property address is assigned. Bruce and I have had extensive conversations about this. It is a problem in this community. It is a problem Mexico-centric only. This is not a problem in other communities that I've invested in, but it is a problem here. So how you all would delve into implementation of the inspections and the control mechanisms to keep that landlord from renting it or transfer of ownership. So this, again, I think this needs to be a dual-headed, don't just target me. And if I need to stop, I can, but
Finish your statement. Just finish your statement.
Within the inspections, don't just target the landlords. Look at any and all properties within the community. That's how all of the other towns that do this does it. It's not just targeted at the landlords. And then clearly defined, I know tell me your name. Nathan has dove into it in layman's terms. We're talking about CO2 smoke detectors, HVAC, electrical, fall hazards, railings. These type of upkeep isn't the only problem. It's also meeting your IBC. So I would recommend you all take a look at what IBC looks like and to what level are you going to allow grandfathering in, because you're going to have a lot of fights, me included, on what is predetermined. You're going to pick an age of the home. 1974 backwards in time gets automatic grandfathered in because some of them have screw-in fuses for breaker boxes. Some of them have sub 100 amp service entrances, which are your 60 amp. My suggestion would be to clearly define how you all are going to tackle each segment within each category, not just HVAC, not just electrical, not just plumbing, but you need some clearly defined parameters. When Mobley implemented this was a train wreck. And it's been never-ending moving field goal post over the last decade plus. Where now it's fully relegated to existing rentals, existing properties, irregardless of who owns them at transfer of ownership, have to now meet IBC. That was where I was going with all this is a step in to this program, but you're going to create a tidal wave of problems behind you with clearly defining what those bogeys are that have to be met for any and all people, not just the landlords.
All right, I think we're. Okay, sorry. I appreciate it. No, that was great information, and you're more welcome to talk to any of us elsewhere too. So, elsewhere, thank you.
My name's Mark Rogers. I live at 1802 Pollock Road. I've been a landlord for 35 plus years. My question is, why are we making a problem where we don't have one? We have no issues with this. We've had no problems. And all of a sudden, we got new regulations. We got another layer of bureaucracy and another layer of layer of regulation. We already have code. I question the why I have to have a license to be a landlord. I know that gives you an enforcement tool, and that bothers me. You know, if you can pull my license, what do I do for a living? You know, again, it creates just another level of BS you have to go through to be a landlord, which there is enough of them. You know. We don't really have a problem, I don't think, with under code. I mean, we have empty houses, true. I have a bunch of them. I bought them. I have tenants that tear them up, and they may sit for a couple of years before I redo them. I mow them. I address any safety issues that are there. I don't necessarily remodel them, but it shouldn't be the purview of some guy who's sitting in an air-conditioned office telling me when I can spend the money on my property and when I can crawl underneath it and get dirty, when he's sitting in an air-conditioned office and telling me what to do. I don't agree with that. And that may be crude, but it's a fact. And I think I can speak for most of my other landlords and say they feel the same way. You're asking for enforcement tools on a problem you really don't have. And why? You know, it's going to, and I'm assuming there's going to be some cost involved in this. I don't imagine the inspections will be free. I don't imagine the registration will be free. If it is free, then it's cost to the city, indirectly cost to the taxpayers. I just question why did this happen? You know, because we really don't have a big problem. We don't have a lot of you know, there is a code enforcement for the appearance of the house and the yard mowed and all that, and you take care of that. As far as the inside of the house, that's kind of the territory of the customer, and in our case, the tenant. Not everybody's going to live like we want them to live. They may be, I don't know, I've seen, some of the things I've seen will scare you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the business of the city or anybody else. It's the business of people that want to live like that. And the more cost you add to a thing, the less affordable housing. I mean, the mantra of all the city officials throughout the state of Missouri is affordable housing, affordable housing. So every time you add cost to it, it defeats your goal of affordable housing. It's another little step up. So what's the point, is what I'm getting to. You know, Mexico pretty much has affordable housing, you know, maybe because we don't have all the regulations and all the hoops we got to jump through. You know, and vacant stuff. As long as you keep it up and keep it mowed and keep it safe, I don't think anybody should be telling me when I can remodel and when I can't remodel. I'll eventually get to them. I'm slow. I'll do most of it myself. So I don't need somebody behind a desk somewhere telling me when I can remodel my house, or well, I'm not remodeling it fast enough to suit them. You know, I keep it mowed. I keep it from any safety issues I take care of. It may not be pretty, but it's the raw materials it takes to make the affordable housing that everybody's concerned about. That is the raw material. It's the old house that you buy and you put the new flooring in and you put the new windows in and you do that. You know, new construction per square foot, you're not going to build too many rental houses. You know, they're going to be in a higher price range, and the economically disadvantaged, if you want to call them that, or the poor people can't afford them. So the raw material for them is the old house that you go put $5,000 or $6,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 in and rent to them. And if you make that where you can't be patient enough for the landlord to go ahead and get it done, then you've destroyed that resource. So
Thank you.
anyway,
Thank you.
there you go.
Thank you.
I'm not real sharp on my Robert's Rules of Order.
Tammy Gibbons, 23019, Audrain Road, 814. I do have property inside the city limits. I agree with Adair. I feel like we're being targeted. So if you're going to run this occupancy permit, it should be across the board. My second concern is I kind of feel like the transparency of this meeting was underhanded, and with it affecting so many people, we should have been notified. That's it.
I can't get them safe to get around. You say
John Lloyd, 716 Southwestern here in Mexico. I think everybody up there knows who I am. I am a landlord, and I just want to say thank you to the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem on that for allowing me to speak to you guys today. I didn't have an opportunity to get hold of you guys, and that's on me. I'm the one that initiated the phone calls today, so I apologize, or thank you. I don't know. It depends on, you can stone me or whatever later.
Known had you not.
But hold on. But I will also say, that's on us for not keeping track of what's going on in our community. You know, I told Steve that. I said, hey, that's on me. You were on the radio, you talked about this. I tuned in last week, or watched the recording, or not last week, the last meeting, and did tune in. So that is on us. We got to take some responsibility for that too, okay? Because we need to know what's going on in our community. I mean, we're part of it, and that's good. But, yes, it did seem somewhat of a shock. I think more of the shock was the timeline, at least for me. You are very efficient. Let me say that. You're welcome. So, having said all that, thank you all for your time in that, and I'm going to shift it to something else. My children are with me, so this was homeschool night. We homeschool, so they're learning to see how municipal government works in action. So, they get to see an exciting meeting, maybe a little bit more. So, thank you all for that. Thank the audience for that. Also, tomorrow night, if you want to go out into a convection oven, meaning Hardin Park, at 7 o'clock, it is going to be the concerts in the park. And so I don't want to toot my own horn, but if you come out tomorrow night, I'll be out there tooting my own horn.
Literally, I tell you.
Hi all, Chris Williams, 1111 East Jackson, Mexico, Missouri. I do not have property that I rent in Mexico, but I have property I own. And as you all know, I was up there for over a decade. Most of you probably don't realize this came up years ago, because I don't think any of you really were here. I remember. Yes. Part of the problem is, like, I will tell you, I don't have a problem if you want to come into a home and you want to say, there's mold, there's this, there's things of safety, which you said, that's one thing. But in your code, it says that the building has to come up to code. What you're trying to pass tonight says explicitly that you must meet current code. That's where you're going to have a lot of money spent, and it's going to cause you a lot of problems. And the second thing, and the reason we didn't pass it before, was, and Tony just left, the banks were not happy with the fact that a lot of times this ends up into what he was pushing for, which is everybody. So now you get into homes. And so I go to resell my personal home, and all of a sudden, I've got to meet all these codes. My home is not up to code. My home's an older home. So I go to sell my home, and suddenly I have to bring it up to 2025 code. When it's an old house, there's nothing unsafe about it. It's just not current code. And so that diminishes the value of my house. And then the banks told us back then when we talked about this that they might not even lend on that. And for a council, which I sat here for a decade, that sits here and says, we need housing, we need housing, we need housing, we need housing, to make more road bumps and speed bumps in front of that, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I've only been gone 2 months, and I'm guessing because you're new and they said do this, But I've never, up till 2 months ago, this was not an issue, so I agree with them. I don't know why this has suddenly become an issue and we have to push this on our citizens. So, but my biggest concern is the code situation. Like I said, you want to come inspect a home because it's got mold, bugs, whatever, cool. But bringing a house up to code, especially in a community that's full of older houses. This is not a community full of new houses. I think Birdland's the newest, well, there's a couple little subdivisions, but big subdivisions, and it's probably 40 years old. So, yeah, so, that's my concern. And so, that's all I got. Thanks.
Sam Robinette, 6180 County Road 260 of Oz. There's so many different things that nobody's looking at here, the unintended consequences. I mean, I know you guys mean well, but who's the client? The client's is the renters. The renters get to choose whether they want to rent that property or not. Everybody's trying to take that away, trying to protect their renters. Has the renters been notified that their costs are going to go up? Because we have to pass it on. I mean, it's not like we're going to provide, free housing. We have to do all this repairs. In the past, this inspector's going to have to come in and tell you what they can and what you can't do. I do a lot with the housing authority, okay? One inspector would come in, house is fine, it passes. 2 months later, they come in, they want $30,000 worth of work done. What are you supposed to do? It's happened. I've had inspectors come in, I have to put screens on all my windows because it says if it's inoperable, if you're going to get fresh air out of it, you have to have screens on. You come up to City Hall, they don't have screens on your windows, but they're trying to make me do that. There's going to be all kinds of these unintended consequences. You can't board up a window, right? You got a building, you can't board up a window. You drive by the square, all those windows are boarded up. So now we're going to tell people in the residential side, you guys can't board your windows up. You can't protect your property. You have to go buy a new window and try to get it in by whatever time somebody tells you, 15 days, 30 days, and try ordering a window. Sometimes it will take 6 months. I mean, especially when the lumberyard screws up the first order and has to do it again. Who's going to come in to here and go, you've got mold in your ceiling. Is it good enough that we can have a council meeting here? I mean, you can look at it and see. The inspectors, that's what happens. It's just an additional cost and all kinds of unintended consequences that this will be the first of all the complaints that's going to happen. Thank you.
Gary Johnson, 8532 Highway 15. When this got brought to my attention, obviously, I wanted to come up here and hear, and I've heard some of the complaints from where you actually stay at, but where's this inspection? Who's going to actually do the inspection? We have 2 inspectors now, trying to get them to come out. So sometimes we wait days for them to come out to do inspections. As it is now, if you are 70% rental occupancy here in Mexico, Missouri. So are they going to be able to keep up with all the inspections that are required? And then, as a contractor here, I'm in the attics, I'm underneath the houses. Are you guys going to go underneath the houses and up in the attics to check? Because I can guarantee you, being underneath houses for over 20 years, there is mold underneath almost every house here in Mexico because it is damp underneath. So what are we going to do with that? Who's going to go underneath there and pinpoint that mold out? And who's going to get underneath there and remove that? The houses that you guys live in that's 30 or 40 years old, if a little dampness is up in the attic, you probably got mold. So I'm wondering who's going to do the inspections, how far the inspections are going to go, and what are we actually trying to accomplish here as a landlord here in Mexico. And I've worked with a lot of these guys sitting here and worked on a lot of their properties. So I'm wondering, are our inspectors going to be able to keep up? because as there's times where we call them and we wait on them as it is now. Are we going to ask for another inspector to be on board for all this? And as I mentioned before, where are we going to draw the line at? Are we going to draw the line on 1960 houses? Are we going to draw the line on 1970 houses? Because if you're in any of these old houses, there's no way. Are you guys going to make these houses that have fuse boxes be pulled and all the wiring be pulled out of them to bring them up? And you know what that takes? Re-sheetrocking a lot of walls. And who in the world is going to be able to keep a tenant in there when that is all happening? So that's stuff to keep in mind as we're wanting to change this stuff. As a contractor that's worked on many of these houses and been in probably 50% of these houses, I have seen stuff that, like they said, just coming in and setting. When you're hands-on on this stuff, you see stuff firsthand, and how is it all going to change? So before we make a decision or whatever, some things to keep in mind, where are you guys going to draw the line at on this? And what are we going to do as landlords if you guys come up with these rules? What time frame do we have? Because if we have 20 rentals, how in the world are we going to bring them all up to the code with? So, and pay for them, and keep your tenant in there at the same time. So, thank you.
My name is Rick Pratt, 2431 Parkcrest. Now, when I heard about the inspections, I kind of thought, I understood the client is the tenant. Now, why can't it be on the tenant to request the inspection? Leave it up to them whether they want to come and live in that place or not. They can come in and pay the $100 fee or whatever the $50 fee, have an inspector come out. The inspector can give them a detailed list of, hey, these are the things that we found. Leave it up to them. If they think, well, those are things I can live with at the price point or the cost break of the house, I'll go with that. But otherwise, that's why I think it's best and most fair way to, take care of the consumer, because that way they're not forced to have to pay what we would have to charge them if you come in and say, oh, all this has to be done. Tenant be damned, because the tenant doesn't really have any choice. They're going to be, we're going to have to do whatever you say needs to be done, and then they're just going to have to live with the costs afterwards. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. Why can't it just be almost like a house purchase thing? The tenant can come in and say, hey, I'd like to request an inspection on 2431 Parkcrest, and you guys go in there and charge them whatever you need to charge them to do it, and then give them the report, and then they say, nah, okay, there's enough on here, I don't want to do it, or hey, you know what, this ain't bad, this is better than most, or whatever. Leave it to them to decide, and that way they're not, that can offset a lot of the costs on some of these older places, like these guys were talking about, the stuff that built in the 40s and the 20s. Those houses are, if a tenant says, hey, I don't mind having galvanized pipes underneath, as long as my rent isn't $950 a month. That's it. Thanks.
Kenneth Hoover, 1626 Westminster. The things that you're all talking about here is going to affect affordable housing. And the people that are renting right now can't afford what they're doing. They can't buy their house. They're renting because landlords are making it available to them, hopefully safely. My rental property is all safely. I was in the business of safety. I was trying to develop things in affordable housing in this community, the same as statewide or countrywide. I attempted to do that on 5 acres I owned. Followed every one of the city's recommendations and codes and owned up to it and did it. And then we had a disgruntled individual on this planning and zoning that axed it. So this is just going to compound the problem on the cost. And we've got people that can't afford it right now. I've got reduced rental that I rent for people so they can have a place to stay. this is going to drive the cost, and the landlords are not going to absorb it. They're going to pass it on. Then you're going to put people on the street, and you're all trying to clean up all the unhoused problems you got in the community right now. I look at this as detrimental. I think, and I ask that you think about it long and hard.
Randy Maxwell, 20334 Audrain Highway HH. Guys, it's a burden right now, and I only have 4 units. So I'm not in the business to make a living on this. It's just a hobby thing or something to help sometimes employees or people that need lower price housing. I don't know how these guys do it to go out and buy one at today's cost and pay interest on it and make it affordable for these guys, because this deal of $400 and $500 rent anymore is going by the wayside. We have some, but our houses are paid for. I don't know how you expect these guys to make it with any more burdens. And the number one thing that you as a councilman need to think about too is, we get this every day. You can't keep a tenant forever. Right. It's a lot of turnover here in town. This deal with the water company and the city taxing us for not taking care of their own issues. You know, if you guys can't collect from them, how do you think we're going to? You guys want us to collect the sewer and the water on a tenant that moves out and doesn't pay you all, or not notify us until it's so deep nobody can get out. So that's something about, is how you handle that. If you look at the landlord's perspective of that, that is a burden that you guys need to take on your own part. We're trying to get our rent collected. Okay? Thank you.
I'll say something. 309 South Main of Oz, Missouri, T.M. Hanson Properties. I do have about 16 properties here, maybe more. Some of them aren't distressed. We do work on them. We follow their city codes. My question is, and I came in, I talked to that guy. The engineer. I talked to him and I said, look, now I got some properties that I would like to tear down and put back new properties. He said, that'd be great. We got a tear down program. It's free. You can tear down your house, you get to keep your property. Deceptive. Because you have to have a certain amount of piece of property to do that. You have to have 30-foot backyard, 10 feet, 10 feet, 20. So you tear down your house, because it's in such bad shape, you can't build it back because your property's not big enough. So now you force us to lose our investment because we can't afford to fix it, can't tear it down, because if you tear it down, now you're just paying taxes on a piece of property. You're going to lose tax money because your value of the house is not going to be there. It's just going to be the property. So that's a big issue. It really is, because some of these houses weren't built up to code. They were built too close to the highway, too close to one another. And now we're forced to follow a new building code, new building enforcement. You got to have 30-foot backyard. That's a huge backyard. 25 feet from the street, 20-foot setback. That's a lot when you got a house that is next door to your neighbor, and there is no room to move. So what do? We can't bring it up to code. We just tear down the house and lose our investment. So it is a big issue in that respect. And again, that's a big burden on, and some of them are not paid for. What happens if they're not paid for? You go to the bank. The bank's not going to give you money to do this. That all comes out of our, and that has to go to the tenant. At that point, we have to charge more for the tenant, and they're not going to pay. And then you got to argue with the sewer company. If the tenant runs off and doesn't pay their sewer bill, we have to pay that. And they go above and beyond the deposit. You say, well, pay a $250 deposit. When it gets to $250, we're cut off. We pay $700 water, sewer bills. Why? Because we can't cut it off. We're not allowed to do that. That's a big burden to us. But then the city says, well, you have to pay it or we won't turn your water on, which water isn't owned by the sewer company. So it's a control issue, and it really does make it tough on us. And it's something to consider that these houses, if we can't bring them up to code and we can't tear them down, taxes is going to change dramatically on that house. It's easier just to fix what we have, rent it out, you keep collecting the taxes, and we go on with our day. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Seeing no one, I move we adjourn.
Second.
I don't think so.
Second.
Briggs?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.